Hey, I can't join. It's telling me there's some kind of internal error when I try to log on my computer.
Okay. Lisa was having trouble. Well, actually, and James Lee everyone's having trouble with Teams this afternoon. So I don't know what's going on, but we don't have to vote on anything. So you don't have to be on video if you're fine to just join us by phone.
Okay.
And then we'll figure out what's going on with it.
I thought maybe it was me, but I've tried 3 different computers now and my cell phone, and I'm getting an error on all of them.
Yeah, it must be something with Teams.
Okay.
Yeah, Wendy, I was on a previous meeting and I couldn't get it to work on my Kctcs computer. I mean, I could get in the meeting, but no audio on either side. So there's something going on.
Okay. All right. I'm glad it's not just me.
No, it's not.
All right.
I think we're ready to go. Did everyone get a copy that Hannah sent out, it's kind of a draft copy of our board meeting for December 3rd?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. So, and Wendy, did you get that?
I'm looking right now.
It would have been
I kept wondering why when I went into Teams and I clicked on the open book, it was taking me to December 3rd.
Yeah, the email was sent by Hannah on 10/18, if that helps.
And I have it pulled up on my screen if you can look at my screen.
I'm on the phone, so let me.
Yeah.
Wendy, I just resent it to you, okay?
And Alexandra, did you get it as well?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay, great.
I don't have an email from Hannah on the 18th.
Yeah, I think Amy just sent it again.
But that worries me. Do you see me listed?
Check. You know what? Hannah sent it to me.
Yeah, I don't have one from her on the 18th.
I think I may have just sent the meeting reminder to the committee, and Lisa, I think I may have only sent you the agenda.
Oh, that's why. Okay. All
But
right.
it is posted and on board, and I know you can't see it, Wendy, but I have it pulled up, and we can walk through it. It's just a draft, so I just wanted to give us somewhere to start from for this meeting.
Okay, I'm printing it now on my computer here, so let me grab that really quick if you care to give me just a second.
Sure.
I emailed it to all the committee members, Hannah, so all of them should have it now.
Okay, I have it.
Great. So really what we did was Hannah just kind of like we put together a draft for the next meeting. So this group, System Policy and Planning Committee's charge is to meet the 2 months prior to each meeting. So in this case, October, November, prior to the December meeting. And then it kind of keeps on going through the rest of the fiscal year, with the purpose of reviewing a draft that, staff that pops up that needs to come to the board, but also to any other agenda items that anyone on this committee would like to see on the agenda, and or any other Board of Regent member who may have contacted you or you've talked to, in any fashion that, you would have done and said, hey, I really think that this is something that the board as a whole should have time to discuss. So that's, this is our very first one, and this is basically input from staff. So there's nothing on here yet that, comes from anybody from the board level, but it certainly can be added as we review this. If there's any topics that any of you all think need to be added or discussed, because it's kind of a living, breathing document right now until we go through it twice, and then it kind of comes together in a final version and is sent out prior to the, in this case, December meeting. The other purpose of this committee is to be accountable for policy review. We talked about when we passed our policy on policies, and policies don't just get written and sitting on a shelf for the next 20 years and never looked at again. That this committee is cognizant of policies that are under review, that are in draft mode, that are going to be presented to the board for action, and that we just keep everything always living and breathing. So I'm going to ask Pam, after we kind of go through some of the agenda, to give us all an update on where things are. We had a very aggressive schedule for looking at all of the board policies, and given some of the time that has passed, other issues we've worked on, and quite frankly, staffing in the general counsel's office, we're probably not going to hit that December timeline we originally set back in June, or even prior to June. But I wanted her to comment on where we are and what the strategy is going forward, so that this committee is aware of things moving forward, how they're moving forward, and if anybody on the committee has input to that process, definitely welcome that. In the November meeting, this committee will expand because the elections for faculty and staff members will happen, I don't know the date, Hannah, remind me soon?
October 29th is the election date, so next Friday.
Next Friday, right. And at that time, we will know who the two staff members and who two faculty members are, who have been elected, and then Hannah and I will reach out to those four folks and talk about this committee and its responsibilities and see which of the two from each area would like to act as representation. So in the November meeting of this committee, we'll have those two folks added. But right now, we literally don't have a pool to pick from for those two people, since three folks have turned out and the elections haven't happened yet. Are there any questions from anybody about kind of updating what the committee does, where we are right now, things we'll talk about today? Anything to be questions? I don't hear any. Either my technology's not working or you're all very quiet.
I understand. I don't think I have anything to add at this point.
Okay. James Lee, anything?
Yes, I understand. When we get into the substance, I have a couple of questions, but nothing about the format and what we're going through today. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thanks. And then Alexandra, anything about the process, or are you ready to dive in?
I'm ready to dive in. I'll follow your all's lead. The format and process sounds great. I'll keep up the best I can. I'll just hang in there with y'all, okay? And it's okay if I ask a lot of questions, right?
Oh, it is, please.
Okay. Like they said, I pretty much understand what's going on. I might stop you and say, well, why is this happening, or what exactly is this? Because I read over it and I think I understand the majority of it. There was just a couple of things I had a few questions about because I haven't seen it before.
Right, exactly. Perfect. And then next month we'll have the same from the faculty and staff. They'll be the newbies and you won't. You'll be the experienced one. All right, so beginning of let's start with the agenda first. The regular stuff, call to order, the roll call, approval of the previous minutes, which would be from the September meeting. What's listed here is approval from the retreat minutes. And I think we have to spell retreat differently, Hannah?
Yes, just caught that. We'll change that.
Yeah.
I just fixed it.
What were you thinking? Retweet?
Retweet.
So just officially for the record,
but yeah, that meeting will.
I'm sorry, officially for the record, have I missed it? Did we declare a quorum for this meeting?
We did not. Can you, based upon us all
Yes.
on the screen? Yeah.
Based upon everyone on the screen, and since we're not really taking official roll call, official vote, we also can have Wendy or Regent Fletcher perfectly on phone without seeing her face. But even without her, we have a quorum with present, and we are ready to proceed.
Awesome. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. So approval of minutes. Got that. Kind of looking at consent agenda. These are things we typically, do each meeting. We just put them under consent because it goes faster. Ratification of personnel actions, new credit certification, embedded diplomas, and candidates for credentials. So at this time, I'm not aware of anything else that needs to go on consent unless Hannah or Pam, you are.
I am not.
Okay. So then the next items are the meat of the agenda. And we'll get an update from the internal auditors. Last meeting, they kind of gave us a plan. They gave us an assessment for the risk management process, and they gave us a plan, and we did take action on that plan. And so now what we're going to get is an update on where they are in the plan. And then the external audit kicks off kind of about this time of year. So I guess we'll get an update on that. And then the action item, I think, where it says 2020, 2021 annual audit report, is that the external audit report?
That is the, Pam, correct me if I'm wrong, I checked with Wendell on this earlier in the week, but yes, and normally prior to the board starting the new audit committee, the external auditors always brought their findings to the board for them to accept them and move forward. And Wendell said that we still need to do that with last year's, the 2021 report. So this is titled annual audit report, but I think moving forward, we would specify whether it's internal, external.
Yeah, I think that's important because it is the external report. And the intention is to have the audit committee in place such that that committee will meet prior to the December meetings. The date has not been set yet. And so that committee will receive both of these updates, the internal audit report and the external audit report, and have an opportunity to comment. But at the end of the day, the action in terms of accepting the report goes to the Board of Regents. And just to give you all a little update on that, everyone on the board should have received a copy of the link that has the application for the two folks who will be at-large members, volunteer. And we're still waiting on getting those applications in. We had set a deadline of November 15th. And so it is going to be a quick turn. As soon as we get those applications in, we're going to kind of set up, who is on the audit committee, and then try to have our first meeting very quickly, somewhere between Thanksgiving and our December meeting. So it's going to be a very quick turnaround, but it'll be basically to orient those members and to probably only go over these two items. That committee is going to be charged with actually adopting a charter, which governs how it works, but there won't be enough time to do all of that. So we'll start that process, I believe, but not necessarily complete it. Are there any questions on those three items, A, B, and C?
I don't have any questions about the items themselves, but I have lots of questions about the items. As far as, I think the flow of the agenda is good. Are we gonna try to put a time on any of these? I'm just thinking about, I know it takes some time to get through this agenda. Do we know who the speakers for each of these items are going to be and how much time they're planning, so we'll know how to kind of plan our questions or our comments?
I think we generally know the speakers a couple weeks ahead of time, and that's to solidify the agenda. I think your question's a good one. Last meeting, at our September meeting, we really kept things wide open, and that was okay. We didn't kind of give people specific timeframes about how long they had to present, and we didn't really say you have this much time to present and then there'll be a question and answer. time frame, but just based on my sense during the meeting, we were rocking and rolling in the beginning, and then we had a time period where we were like, "Oh, okay." One presentation took a really long time, and so is your suggestion to do that, to kind of time box it a little bit, just so we understand the flow?
I think it would help the speakers, honestly, if
Yeah.
they knew that they had 15 minutes, to present, or 20 minutes to present, then maybe, and maybe I'm way off base even thinking that, but that was exactly what I was thinking. Is we were really doing well, and I think everybody was really excited about the change in the meeting format. And then it was like, whoa, we hit this wall, and then there was just this big, long, So I'm just trying to figure out how to be most efficient. That's my word, right? That's my mantra. Let's be more efficient. And I think maybe putting a timetable to it would help us to stay on track.
I think it's a great idea. And, we did ask, Hannah did ask the presenters that came in from the colleges, because we've got some of those kind of items on this agenda too, revisions of mission statements and stuff, to keep that, to a minimum, because sometimes those would get away from themselves and it would be like an hour talking about a mission statement revision. So I think that we were probably inconsistent with all of our speakers. Some of them we told to limit it and some of them we didn't. So we should be more consistent about doing that. And I think time, putting a time on there is good as a guide. The only thing I don't want to do is shut down board communication. So that would be the only caveat, is that if the board feels they need more time to discuss things, then we might violate our timeline a little bit. But other than that.
And totally agree with that. I'm just thinking in terms of helping the speakers to be able to have an idea or an understanding of what kind of time frame we're expecting from them.
Perfect.
And Lisa, if I can ask a question. So I envisioned, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, the first two updates from the internal audit report and the external audit report, assuming the audit committee gets together in November and meets and gets, I assume, an update from the external and internal auditor, then someone on that committee, whether it's you or another member, would turn around and give that update to the full board. So it would actually be a regent providing those two updates, because the committee would have received the presentation a different time.
And I'm fine with that, but I would want those people who presented to the audit committee to be at the meeting, at the regent meeting.
Okay.
On anything. Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think, yes, to be efficient, that would be the best way to do it. But just to have those folks there, should anybody have a specific question? And obviously we would have copies of their reports, their presentation, stuff like that ahead of time.
And then because the full board is taking action on the 2021 annual audit report, kind of as its last thing before this committee takes over, I think that if that's the external auditors, they would be there anyways to present that full 2021 report that the board votes on.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Lisa?
Yeah, I really like that idea, because if it's coming out of committee to a vote, it doesn't have to have a second, and it doesn't have to have another floor discussion unless there were questions, correct?
Correct.
James Lee, do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Lisa, everything will go well with both of those reports unless there's a problem. And, if they present things that there's a problem, then that's when really it opens up a discussion type of thing is. And, I really want us to be sure that I think this board is very concerned about the money and where things are going, this and that. So basically that's what I would say is, some of the other action items are more of a routine things from the community college, but these things, especially if we have any problems, and we're optimistic we're not going to have any problems. But if we do, then, I think that the board needs to be aware of those and how we're going to address those problems.
Absolutely. And I think that I don't know that the internal audit report in December will have any findings yet. So you're right, probably not anything yet, but this item, internal audit report in March, might look different. It might have an action, or it, might need more discussion time, things like that. So that's a good point. Thank you. The next item is Kctcs compensation, and it's labeled here as action. So, Hannah, could you kind of tell us why there's an actual action on that? Do you know?
I believe it's because at the last meeting in September, it was requested that we look into providing a one-time, Wendell will kill me because it's not a bonus, but a bonus for employees. And so they have looked into that and are going to be bringing a recommendation back forward for the board to vote on to award faculty and staff before the holiday break.
Okay, so that clears it up for me, because I thought we were getting just an update on the ongoing planning process for the overall compensation issue. So we're getting both then.
Yes, correct. You will get both. You'll get an update on the bigger overall plan for class and comp, but then we will actually ask you to vote on giving this one-time payment.
Hannah, is this going to be a one proposal, or could it be is like $500, $1,000, what it is, this and that? Is it going to be just one proposal, or we're going to have an option depending on the amount of money we can afford in that? Do you know that?
I know that Wendell has kind of zeroed in on the $500, but I also know that we just from cabinet discussions, we've discussed different amounts, and I personally would love to see different amounts put out there, and the board determine what is best versus, someone on cabinet or President Zarapata making the decision, because I think that's strictly within your statutory duties to decide what the compensation is for the employees. So we can bring you, if you're asking for multiple choices, I can relay that message to have those brought to you.
I'm only one of the committee, but I'd like to see 500 and at least 750 and $1,000. That's what I'm saying is, and if any board members wants to go higher than that, I don't have any problem with that. But let the board make the decision on that if it's possible, Madam Chairman.
Absolutely, I agree. I mean, I always feel that, especially in this particular area, in terms of fiduciary responsibilities, compensation and benefit is statutorily required that we review, and that we need to be provided with all possible information within reason. Of course, I would never ask staff to look at 50 different options of compensation, but I think asking for three is reasonable. So how do you feel, Wendy? I'm okay with the dollar amounts that James Lee proposed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even though I'm afraid those still sound low, I think given the financial state at this point, it's reasonable. But along those same lines, I do want to make sure I understand, because I have a lot of questions about another set of benefits, and on the heels of that discussion, I just want to make sure. So when it comes to things like any benefits for any employee, that's our fiduciary responsibility, correct?
Benefits and compensation are non-delegable duties within the purview of the Board of Regents. So yes, those are all. So you set the salary schedule, you determine what retirement benefits, what health benefits, etc. What institutional close is something within your purview. Juneteenth is within your purview. So there are all sorts of fringe as well as required benefits. But every single one of those benefits is within your purview.
Okay, well, that's great to know, because then I have a lot of questions about item number 3 on the agenda. Not item number 3, item number 5C on the agenda. So before we get down to E, I'm going to have a lot of questions about C.
The audit report?
So the OPEB trust.
And Lisa, I posted a different one than you're probably looking at, because after we spoke, I'm sorry, I went in there and added OPEB trust after we had our conversation earlier.
Yeah,
so
I'm sorry. Yes, I get it. So sorry. I'm on the wrong version. Yes. So I'm going to get into onboard. So I'm looking at the same thing you guys are. Is it a separate line item here?
It is. And I will actually probably rearrange it to put the 3 audit report items together and then make OPEB trust D, but for right now it's listed as C.
Okay.
Oh, I have this C. I'm the wrong one too.
It is listed as C. On the one that's up on the board, Roman numeral 5C. But Hannah, I think that will need to be a
action
item.
Okay.
I see. Yes. Yeah. So I think I agree with you. So just what we're looking at is items A, B, and D, as it's shown in onboard, all come together. So that becomes internal audit report, external audit report, annual audit report action. And then OPEB trust becomes a separate item. And do you all, I'll ask your opinion, Hannah, do you want to cover that after the compensation item?
It's up to you.
I think it logically flows to I mean, I don't think it matters. They're both kind of together in the statute, so whichever one you feel should go first.
Okay.
I would rather talk about the OPEB trust first, because in my mind, that could change the amount of money that's available, perhaps, for the second item. Or maybe not, but I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, and since it's a follow-up, the OPEB trust is a follow-up, because we already talked about that last meeting, but we're bringing it back again.
Yeah.
And we do have to take action. So I think it does need to say action, and probably let's do that one first and then do the compensation.
Okay, great.
And just so the committee knows, there will be guests to explain essentially why that is coming forward again and why it's an action item.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just an area that we need more information on. I kind of felt like, and I don't know, James Lee, if you felt the same way, that we needed more information on the OPEB. I know, Wendy, you did feel that we needed more information on that.
And yes, and I think that's correct. And remember, we have 4 new members on there. And so this may be one of those learning, reteaching and learning for everybody is what I'm saying. I can understand this one is maybe somewhat time consuming to go through that's what I'm saying, especially with what little knowledge I may have about it, but we've got 4 brand new members on there this time to understand it.
Yeah, at least. So we have 2 students, 3 or 4 faculty staff, and also Mr. Cox Russell as our, so I think you're right. I mean, potentially half the board doesn't know too much about what the OPEB is. So.
I'm not sure that those of us who've been around for a while really understand.
Yeah.
Amen to that. That's right. Thank you. I didn't.
Yeah.
Glad you spoke up about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we were
And
told what it was, but I don't know that we really understand exactly what it is, which is why I have a lot more questions about it.
So I guess the feedback, Hannah, to go back to Wendell from this committee is we need to, especially with 6 or 7 new members, depending on how it falls out, you got half the board who doesn't even know what this is. So we need some basic context about what is the OPEB trust and why is it there and who's involved and all that, the where, what, when, how, why stuff. And then
also how that falls to us as a responsibility to either approve or to change or to whatever.
Yeah, it's a benefit, so that's why it falls that way. But I don't think we made in previous meetings, how shall I say this? It was not incredibly clear that it was a benefit and therefore we were statutorily required to know more about it than we know and to take action as we should. Am I saying that right,
Exactly.
Pam?
Correct. An OPEB trust is a standard document that is intended to secure debts that might be incurred in the future. And those are other than our post-employment benefits that are other than retirement. So it has nothing to do with pensions, only with health and other types of post-employment benefits. So they are standard documents. But the fact of the matter is, health benefits are benefits. And so you have to, number one, approve the trust, which was done by a previous configuration of the board. Then you have to approve the increase or decrease of the benefit plan that institutes or implements all of the income, interest, and what they call the corpus or principle of the trust. And so while those things, the trust is already set up, and there are certain legal boundaries you have to work within, there is still all of that that's going on administratively and investment wise that you ultimately have to approve. And so you need to understand that why the trust was set up, what the trust is intended to do, and then what goes on behind the scenes of the trust, and then what particular duties you have to help to implement and pay out that trust, and what your options are in that benefit package. And so I think you need to know all of those things to be able to make a good decision on making a vote that is non-delegable based on the statute.
So, Pam, included in that would be our options for, I don't know what the correct term is, so forgive me, but is there a way to stop that benefit if it's no longer feasible for us to continue it? Is it an indelible kind of thing?
Well, and that's why I think the trust itself is able to be stopped, but you are not able to take the benefits that are, or the corpus that's in there and use it contrary to the original purpose of the trust. So, for instance, if there are currently, I think, 411 participants in the trust, so those particular people would need to have all of the money paid to them and their benefits provided post-retirement, and anything left over would revert then to the institution. But you cannot not live up to your benefits right now for the people who are in there. Now, what those benefits look like is what we're talking about right now. Do you have a certain level of benefits, a higher level of benefits? Do you create a bigger eligible pool of people? What do you do with that money to give benefits? So the trust itself is a good thing. So I don't think that we should get mired in whether it was good or acceptable or whatever. But I think what we should get mired in is, what does it mean? And what are your options? And how do we go? Is it, I listened to the conversation, and there is a difference between a closed trust, a revocable trust, an irrevocable trust. Those are not interchangeable words. And so I think that needs to be explained to you, that closing a trust has to do with how you define the participants. But having a revocable or irrevocable trust has to do with whether you keep the trust going, can keep the trust going, can destroy the trust, etc. And so I think that's what you need to know is, within that, what do we do with the money and who makes the decision?
I think
Okay.
that's very good, because I don't think it's been explained to us that way in the past.
Yeah, and that helps a lot, I will say. So thank you for that. But my understanding is it is a closed trust.
And again, that goes back to who are the participants in the trust. And so the participants in the trust, what happened in the past is that the Board of Regents voted to stop all post-retirement health benefits for anyone participating in the retirement plan known as the 403B. So that was their first action. Boom. That cuts off the participants who are owed post-retirement health benefits. So that's how you close the trust. Then the trust was set into place and defined the participants as anyone who was owed post-retirement health benefits, which means that only those people prior to that policy that the Board of Regents passed get to participate in the trust. So what closed the trust was the policy, because of how they defined the participants in the trust.
So is that a policy? Because kind of we talked about this before. As a board, we really couldn't tell a future board what they could or could not do. So is that the case here?
Right. So policies are within your purview. And
we could change the policy if we wanted to.
You can, but you need to be advised on whether that is a fiscally sound thing to do. And I am not the numbers person, but you need someone who will tell you whether that is a fiscally sound thing to do, whether there is a possibility of using the income from the trust in a different way, the interest from the trust in a different way, whether you should open the trust, keep the trust closed, and create a different, less lucrative benefit package for people, or even, for instance, going back to the $50 supplement that people got per month if you waived having a dependent on your insurance. So our point, Hannah's point, my point is that it is incumbent upon administration to give you reasonable options, not 1,000 like Lisa said, but multiple options. And then you decide what is fiscally sound, what is appropriate for the employees, and what benefits the institution, not just this moment, but in the future.
So given that, I don't think we've ever been given that level of detail or opportunity relative to this trust.
You have
No,
not.
and basically, my understanding is you can't mess with it, and this is an administrative decision, and so therefore it's out of your purview. That's pretty much my understanding, which now I obviously have a much better understanding.
Pam, I have a question in reference to trust. Is we're talking about retirees that fall under for their medical insurance, correct?
Right. This is only post-retirement health benefits.
Okay.
It is not about our current employee health
I
benefits.
was asleep and I was alarmed to find out that new employees, whatever what position they're in, when they come in now, I thought, that one of the fringe benefits is certainly not their salary, but fringe benefits, if you work for us 25 or 30 years and you're 55 years old and you're ready to retire, at least there's something there besides a retirement for health insurance. And I understood Paul to say, or Wendell to say the other day, is that all new people do not have, when they retire after 20 or 25 years employment, they do not automatically can participate in health insurance. Is that correct?
That is correct. So let me also throw in another policy issue is that while certain of our employees participate in the Kentucky retirement teachers retirement system and the Kentucky employee retirement system, those particular people have retiree health benefits in some manner.
Right.
KT better than KE, but KE gets some sort of supplement, as I understand. They have some sort of post-retirement benefit available to them at some level, good, bad, kind of in the middle. When the policy was set that 403B participants would not receive post-retirement benefits, there was still the option as well to go into KT or KE. In 2014, effective January 1, 2014, no employee is permitted as a new employee to go into KE or KT, only to go into 403B. So no one past January 1, 2014 has any post-retiree health benefits, and most people past 2006 do not have any post-retirement employment benefits.
Can you tell me what the universities have in reference to this retirement? Do they have this similar program? Or if you start at a university, UK, U of L, or Western or Murray, and you teach for 25 years, when you retire from that institution, do you have some type of health insurance?
Mm-hmm. So, UK, and I can only talk to UK. I will have to research the others. UK does have an OPEB trust, which Vice President Followell indicated to you in your other meeting. So they did cut their OPEB trust and cut off certain post-retiree health benefits. But because they have the medical center, they do offer health benefits post-retirement at various reduced rates. And so there is some ability to have access to health benefits for those retirees, but not in the same manner as necessarily the people who are in the OPEB trust for UK.
Do we offer anything? Do we offer anything similar to the UK program is that, that you have contributed and you will get X? Do we offer that at all?
No.
Thank you.
Unless you're in the OPEB trust.
So I have one more question, and I'm going to go back to statutory requirement for the board relative to compensation, and you said the word benefits just generically, right? In addition to getting information about this OPEB trust, I think the board probably needs to understand at some level what the current benefit package is, because I don't recall, at least in the 5 years I've been on this board, ever getting any of that detail. I recall voting on compensation, but I don't remember ever voting on benefits, unless it was just part of the budget as a line item rolled up into compensation. Am I incorrect in that, or Hannah or Pam, do you know?
Hannah will probably need to speak to that since I am just 1 year into my parliamentarian duties here.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Pam. No,
there you go, Hannah. It's yours.
Quite honestly, I don't ever, Amy, our memory person can maybe talk to it. I don't remember ever any benefits coming before the board. And I think it's something that is long overdue for the board to see. I know there are, because of our different systems, there's a lot of information there, but it needs to be distilled down and presented to you guys.
Yeah, because I mean, we're talking about post retirement here when we're talking about OPEB, but I have no idea what your, plain vanilla regular benefit options are. And so I guess I feel like I've been voting through the process of approving a budget on something I don't know about. And if statute tells me I should know about compensation and benefits, then I'm going to say I don't know about the benefit piece. I'm not suggesting that it needs to change. I'm just saying I don't know anything about it.
Sure.
Lisa, in the past, they used to have HR updates at every board meeting along with the personnel action items. I'm saying that was like in 2008, 2010. So it was, long ago, but they used to do that because of all the different personnel systems that we have. So the HR update would include what benefits employees have, what benefits, depending on the personnel system you are in, receive, and so forth. I can't honestly speak to what you voted on as a board back then, but I can tell you that there used to be HR updates at every personnel action agenda item at board meetings.
Okay. Well, I just feel like if we have a statutory requirement to be knowledgeable about compensation and benefits, then we need to be knowledgeable about compensation. I'm just a little bit, I don't know why, Amy, the historian, can maybe tell us why those reports stopped. But I mean, from your perspective, Pam, doesn't that leave us in the dark a little bit?
Yes, I mean, my philosophy is that you have a fiduciary duty to this institution and a duty of loyalty, and to carry out both of those means that you need the information necessary. Now, some of it may end up being information that you ultimately end up saying, that wasn't necessary, and I don't need to hear that to make my decision. We need more of this. But our point, Hannah's point, my point, all of our points are to say you need the information necessary to complete your duties, not bits and parts of it.
Then I would propose that we need to understand the current health benefit plan in addition to post-retirement benefit plans as they're out there.
For the 411, right?
Because, yeah, I mean, I think we need to understand all of it, because we're also going to be asking this board to evaluate and approve a multi-year compensation strategy that tries to right the ship around compensation and compression. So if we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, I just don't feel armed to make a good decision about even compensation, because I got to understand both sides of it.
And when we're talking compensation, and this might not be the appropriate time to ask this question, but I kind of think it is. Do we need to change the policy about compensation such that any compensation counts toward compensation and not just quote unquote salary? Because after the whole conversation about certain types of stipends and certain types of compensation that were being given, I was really shocked to find out that, I mean, to me, it's a little like there's a shell game going on. Here's salary and benefits, but then here's this additional money all these people are getting that we didn't have a clue about. And yet I felt like that we were being asked to vote on compensation packages when we didn't know what all those details were. So can we change our policy around how that gets? And Pam, maybe that's a question for you. I don't know how to even ask the question, but you know, if I don't ask the right question, I'm not going to get the right answer. So help me ask the right question.
So go ahead.
Can the board, can we change the policy around salary total compensation is what I want to say. Total compensation, so that salary, benefits, stipends, car allowance, whatever it is something that we see before we as a board vote on it?
I mean, you set compensation, and compensation is different than wages. So wages are what you earn as your salary. Compensation is your total package. So I would say yes.
And I think,
go ahead.
Wendy, I think what you're getting at, and the word's not coming to you, but I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about that executive, well, now
allowance.
It's just, yes, yeah, executive
allowance.
That was
in contracts for people, which basically means it's coming out of the funds of the institution, and we didn't know anything about that.
Exactly. Yeah. All the cabinet and PLT have an executive allowance that is considered part of their overall compensation, but if you ask them what it is not included as their salary, and that is true. I totally agree with you. It's concerning if it's not presented as part of their overall compensation, because it is money coming to them just under a different name. And so I think, yes, the board needs to see all the details, and not just what a salary or a wage is.
Now, let me tell you why this is important to me, because as you know, from our conversation at the last board meeting and my whole make us more efficient, make us more effective, make us more streamlined across the system so that we don't have 15 different job descriptions in 16 different colleges that all do the same thing. But because of compensation, we are calling them different things to get people to a different level or to get people the compensation they need to come or whatever. I really want to see us change the policy in personnel or human resources, however we call that, to make sure that we are uniform across the system. I don't want somebody being called a program director in one college and being called a dean in another. To me, that's highly inefficient, especially if they're doing the same job, but over here we're paying them a little more, so we gave them a different title. But over here, that person has the same responsibility, only we're giving them less of the title and less money. To me, this all ties together. These are not independent issues. It all really has to gel and be molded into this system, is the way I see it. And I know that I didn't get a warm, fuzzy reception about the idea of centralizing accreditation and therefore, centralizing a lot of these types of processes. And it's not that I'm trying to take local control away. I like the idea of some local involvement, some local control. But when it comes to this, if we are truly a system, then every college should have the same positions, whether those positions go unfilled or unneeded or whatever. But our personnel books should be the same across the system. Compensation should be pretty much the same. Now, I know the economics people will say it's what the market bears, and over here you don't have to pay as much, and over here, But at the same time, I really think that we need to streamline some of this. And this compensation and benefits thing needs to be fair across the system. And I just feel like it's not. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I agree, Wendy. James Lee, did you want to add to that?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Thank you, Wendy. You're a great young lady. I appreciate your comments. And I think that we need to look at that as Wendy says. But another question or concern I have is the salaries or how it's computed in reference to the 16 college presidents. I mean, we have no idea of what the salaries are, if it's prorated, if it's based on enrollment, is it based on staff and things of that nature. So, I think that I was taught a long time ago is that boards and regents have limitations, Pam, but also board and regents control money. And, I learned very quickly is that the people that control the money have a great influence, is what I'm saying. So I think for Wendy's comments, and I just think that that's something that we need to look at. I'm not opposed to it. I don't understand how it's done. And that's only my comment. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, James Lee. So I think what I'm hearing, and Alexandria, I'm going to give you an opportunity. Did you have any comment or question before I?
No, everybody seems to answer it once I kind of think of something. Y'all catch me up.
Okay, because I saw your hand go up and then it went down and then it went.
Yeah, because as I think of them, everybody kind of answers it because they're on thinking the same thing I'm thinking, and y'all are just kind of answering them as I'm thinking it. Thank you.
Great. So I think, Pam, I think based upon just listening to what everybody said here, Pam and Hannah, we just don't have enough information about a lot of different things. I do know relative to the president's compensation packages, we did outline on the risk plan with the internal audit team that we wanted a deep dive into that so that we understood for all senior management, which included the president's leadership team as well as cabinet members, what the compensation packages were, essentially what contracts were, so we could understand the makeup of those. So I do think we'll get some detail on that as part of the risk report. But overall, in terms of our fiduciary responsibilities, we need to understand a whole lot more than we do right now. And I think what we've heard, we've presented with salary schedules. To me, that's wages. And we've been presented with updates on the trust as a whole in terms of its performance. But we've been missing a lot of other pieces of the puzzle. We just don't know what the current health benefits are. And so I guess by default, we've been approving them through adopting a budget, which doesn't feel good, to me at least. And I think that, to Wendy's point, we know anecdotally that there's disparity amongst the 16 colleges in terms of position titles and compensation and all of that, but we don't really know any more than that. So help me, Hannah, how do we frame this? Because there's a lot of information you'll have to bring back to Wendell and possibly Jackie. How do we frame this as a discussion item for the meeting? Because I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah. I mean, I've taken down all these notes. I think it's going to be Pam and I going back to Wendell and Jackie and Paul and saying, they want the full picture in a way they've never received it before. And they want current health benefits, current vacation packages, current sick day leave, everything laid out for them. And, I don't know what can be done between now and the November meeting. But I would like to at least bring forth in November something back to this committee to look at and see if we're on the right track or they're on the right track as to what you guys want to see at the board meeting in December.
And I think that's perfect. Numbers. Sorry.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm such a numbers geek. I would love to see variance in those packages between the colleges or between employee, job descriptions. Like if there are levels of employees, for example, I know that some of the colleges, they use like you're level 16 if you're a middle manager and you're level 22 if you're an executive or whatever. I would love to see a report on variance between personnel within the same job category or within the same. Do you know what I'm asking?
Yep.
Across the system, not within a single college, but across the system. So, does a office manager in Maysville make the same amount as someone in Lexington, or just so we can kind of get a feel for the variance that's across the state? Because I know geographically, there's probably some cost savings in some place and some higher costs than others just because of the market. But I'd kind of like to see, what that variance looks like. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And so, at one point, you could take a step back. We could all take a step back and say we're asking for a lot of information. But if I'm going to go back to, we have asked for a plan for compensation, right? So being a former finance director and managing all those, who had to give me all those little details and count all those little beans so I could present to a board of elected officials, they have to already be in the weeds anyway to do that work. So I don't think that we're asking for anything that is not readily available to do the compensation study. What we're asking is to understand it at a much more detailed level, to be inclusive of benefits that we've not been presented to, at least not since possibly 2010, and none of us were on that board then. And I don't know if it's a matter of resurrecting what used to be, presented before, because I've never seen it, so I don't know if it's good enough. But if that helps you, Hannah, we definitely need to have some more meat on the bone here, because I just feel like we've been presented things piecemeal and not in totality.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, in reference to another subject about finances, and I appreciate your comments in Madisonville and touring the state, but we've got to have some type of salary schedule that rewards people on an annual basis for their working for the community college system. And I know that Paul has said that, and you've said that, and I've said that. But basically, as we go in thinking about March or in June of next year's this and that, we've got to find a way to work on, update, revise, or so that people can know that what their salary is going to be next year. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the terminology typically used is step-in grade or longevity, or these are the terms that we could kind of throw back to Wendell as that we're expecting the compensation plan, particularly as it addresses compression, to include things that address that, you know. So you can call it step and grade, you can call it longevity, you can call it a lot of different things, but I think you know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Alexandria, did you have a question?
When you say for people, when you say salary schedule rewarding people, you're referring to everybody that works with KCTCS, correct? Or is that just when y'all refer to it, you're not just saying like faculty, you mean faculty and staff, correct? Am I understanding that?
Yes, we need to. I'm a big proponent of what I call the classified, not the salary people, the hourly people. They really have done a great job, and they need to be rewarded. Not that everybody else hadn't done a great job, but those custodians and secretaries that have cleaned our facilities or so, we've got to keep them, and they're doing a great job. Thank you.
That's why I asked, because just being a student, I've come into contact with a lot of staff, and not that the faculty isn't great. Of course, you know, our faculty is amazing, but I just don't want our staff to be ignored either, because, you know, our students make contact with them on a daily basis as well. That's why I asked the question.
Great, thank you. Yes, it does include both. Yep.
Well, I'm feeling better about this committee because I wasn't really sure what we were going to accomplish today, but I feel like this is a lot. This is good.
It's a lot, yeah. And honestly, that this is why we're having this committee and this discussion, because I mean, I'll just put it out there. I'm tired of the plain old, right? I'm tired of being fed the same information, you know, meeting after meeting, not having the opportunity to really build an agenda, which is what we're talking about here, and to really get to the meat of what we are required, at a minimum, statutorily required. I mean, we're just scratching the surface here, folks. There's probably a lot of stuff that we really should be talking about, but at a minimum, I really want to make sure we have all the information we need to meet our statutory obligations, and we just haven't in the past. So thank you, Wendy and James Lee and Alexandria for supporting this, because it's super important. Are we ready to maybe go on to the rest of the items? You guys okay with that?
So yes, just to clarify and to add one more comment. So when I'm talking about streamlining those job descriptions, that would also include, even at the higher levels, if there's going to be a change in a job description, a change in, you know, and I'm not saying necessarily the minutia of it, but in general, I think if there's going to be, I'll just give the example. If we have 15 presidents who all have the same job description, but we make an exception for one, I think that has to come before the board. Do you all agree with that or disagree with that?
So when you're talking about an exception, are you talking about a deviation in the benefits and the wages that they receive?
yes, or the requirements for a job position, or the expectations of that position, or the fringe benefits of that position.
Right. So I think so going back to our policy discussion, I think what we need to do is to get these policies drafted and to set the parameters within those policies about what does it mean to have a non-delegable duty over compensation and benefits, and then set a policy and a procedure on how and when something that is out of the norm would come before the board.
Beautiful. Thank you for saying that so eloquently. What
Yeah.
she said.
I think that's important as well, because we're on that fine line between we manage one employee, but we also have fiduciary responsibility for the entire. So and with Pam help, which is fantastic, I think she's going to help us do that very well. Great. Were there any other comments, questions before we look at the rest of the agenda? Okay. The rest of the items, we've got some, I think Wendy, you said it earlier, kind of, regular stuff that comes before us, mission statement revisions, associate and applied science, aviation maintenance for Madisonville, associate and applied science, diesel technology for Madisonville. So these are just some programmatic approvals that are currently required by the board. I guess the only thing I would say about this, and this goes back to Wendy's earlier point, one of the things I'd like is to consider streamlining some of these program approvals so that they are eligible across our 16 colleges. And what I mean by that is the way it's set up right now, we have made some improvements. We have delegated some approval processes to the president so that certain embedded programs can be approved more quickly, and that's a good thing. But if I started a program at Gateway and it was unique, yet it was something that could easily be done at any of the other 15 colleges, and I'm going to pick on cybersecurity as an example. Cybersecurity is absolutely location, and you can be working on cybersecurity on any place on planet Earth and do that program. The way things are set up today, as I understand them, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if I wanted cybersecurity to be approved across all 16 colleges, I would have to have that presented by each college president individually, which, I mean, darn, we only meet 4 times a year. How many years is it going to take for us to get cybersecurity approved across 16 colleges? So
it all goes back to that centralized accreditation conversation, Lisa. If we were accredited as a system, we could do that. But because right now we allow them all to be individually accredited, we got to do it 16 times.
And that's what I wanted to put on the table is I wanted to understand, is the board, is it within the board's purview to be able to, since we have to approve all these different programs, and I think that may be tied to SACS accreditation, but I'm not 100% sure, other than maybe it's an independent policy and it's not tied to SACS accreditation. I don't know. Is there a way for us to become more efficient about that? And I don't, Pam, do you know? Hannah, do you know?
So I would be speaking out of turn if I speak too deeply about this. We will need to get to the chancellors, but I do know that there are both policies within KCTCS and SACS accreditation issues that require the manner in which they do it. So the way that the curriculum committees are set up, etc. And again, I'm speaking very high level because this is not my area of expertise. So it's both policy and internal policy as well as SACS accreditation issues. So I see Amy has her hand up and I will let her, she is the historian here.
Pam, I just wanted to say that we also have CPE requirements that we have to follow in order for program approval. I'm not sure of all of the details. That would have to come from Dr. Williams. But I do know that we have some things that we have to follow from CPE in order for program approval and so forth.
Okay,
that is correct.
So that's good information. So I think kind of consistent with the previous item that we talked about, rather than just, blindly sitting here and approving these programs and moving on to the next meeting where more programs or maybe the same program comes back to us, I think we need some information from the chancellor's office about what are those limitations, CPE, SACS, current policy, and who is the limiting entity, right? Because I've always been a believer in, if we want to do something differently and someone says to me, well, CPE won't let you do that, then I'm going to ask the question, why not? Well, because of A, B, and C. Well, that's nice. I'd like to talk to CPE about that. Because
yes.
It's kind of like, I don't want to accept no. No is, the first no is not necessarily acceptable until we've exhausted all avenues. Does that make sense?
Yes, and what I'm going to take back to cabinet after this call is, and I think I'd already asked, I know I'd asked Chancellor Williams to look at if, based on Wendy's feedback at the last meeting, okay, they want to talk about how we get streamlining these programs. Okay, let's look at that. Well, I think the answer I was provided is, well, we already know that SACS is not going to accredit us as a single system because they've made that statement in the past. And that was kind of the end of that discussion. Well, again, Lisa, your point is on, your statement's on point. Like, okay, well, SACS won't do it. Why do we have to limit ourselves to SACS here? There are other accreditors out there for systems. So I'm going to kind of take that back and say, we don't want the no, here's why. We want it's a possibility, here are the options.
And that is exactly what I'm trying to say is don't tell me no. I want to hear. There are multiple different avenues we can take, and I've done the analysis on them, and here's my 3 recommendations. And one of those recommendations could be do nothing, stay exactly where we are today, but at least do me the service of looking at other alternatives. Wendy, you and I sat on an academic committee, and we went through this round and round about a accreditation issue in a nursing program. And I think I asked the question, now knowing nothing about nursing, you are the expert, but I thought
surgery tech.
And I thought, well, who else accredits surgery tech? Oh, well, there's others. And have we asked them if we need to add, what it was, 6 or 8 more credits to the program just because this one accreditor required it? I mean, to me, that's throwing up a roadblock. That's costing students more money.
We were kingdom sparing there is what I think. I think we were job protecting in a certain situation. But anyway, yeah, again, very inefficient, but definitely had not explored any other possibilities. And I'm with you, Lisa. If the first answer is no, find me the yes. Find a yes.
Right. And if you can't find it, that's fine. Or if you still want to go back to the no answer, show me that you've done some due diligence on the 2 or 3 or 5 other possibilities. And I don't feel like that happens.
Yep. So we've got to ask the question, if there's a limiting, if there's a wall or roadblock, how do we get over it? Or how do we get around it? Or how do we take a different road to get to our destination? Right.
Right. Exactly.
So we need to know not just that this particular accrediting body won't do this, but I also want to see that in writing from the accrediting body. I want to know this isn't someone's interpretation, or that this isn't one surveyor's interpretation of a policy. I mean, I come from big hospital systems where, a Joint Commission accreditor walks in and you have a surveyor and it's her opinion that you're not doing this particular standard, exactly right. Well, now Joint Commission publishes, well, here's the standard, and here's all the things, all the guidelines go along with that standard. So it's not one surveyor's opinion on whether or not, you can have a Coke at the nurse's station. It's the rules are laid out. And I would assume that in accrediting for academic programs, it's exactly the same, So what would keep us from being accredited as a system,
Great. And that's what I think, Hannah, if you can take that back, what are the options? I think also to Amy's point, if the limiting factor is CPE, what is it? Show us in writing what the CPE policy that prevents us from doing some of these things. But I think so, in addition to these action items that we have here, for these associate degrees, I feel like we need, again, more information about why do we do things the way we do them right now, and what are the possibilities to be more streamlined. And I think James Lee has a hand up, and also Pam.
Yes, ma'am. I would just caution us. I think that we need to ask the questions why we have to do this, and that is, but the Southern Association, SAC, is a very well entrenched institution. And, basically is, if you, I know in public education, that is one of the things, as well as the colleges, is what I'm saying. So basically, my concern would be is that if we already have programs within the system at our community colleges, and we can approve those, but they need to go ahead and start it. Now, I know the aviation, Madisonville may be the only one right now, so that's an update. But I would just caution us to be careful about what we lambast or go after SACs, is what I'm saying, is because it is a very entrenched institution, and they can really make you a great institution, or they can cause havoc, either one.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you.
Having been involved in SACS accreditation meetings at both the high school and college level, yeah, I know they got a lock on it. but I think more so, back to my earlier point, was, regardless of SACS, it seems to me as a board, if we approve a cybersecurity program at Bluegrass, there shouldn't be anything that limits the other 15 colleges from implementing a cybersecurity program, certainly not the least of which is having to get on our calendar. So I'm hoping that we could at least accomplish that.
Right, and I do think I remember from the last board meeting that the chancellor had promised to bring forward some information on program approval. So I would like for us to rely heavily on getting that information, and then, like Regent Fletcher and Regent Damaris said, to identify from that information the obstacles, etc., that are there, CPE obstacles, accrediting obstacles, and then go from there. So I think we do need to definitely get the chancellor's input on all of the ins and outs, and we will head forward.
Okay.
Pam, do you want me to add program, update on program approval or update something to that nature on the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can do it after the action items, so we get through the action items, because I'm not challenging those. You know, they are what we do today, so I don't want to
Okay.
hold up those presenters. But I think after the action items relative to programs, then we could put that update in there, because we will be talking about programs. I'm going to do a time check right now for everybody. The other items, one is an information on procedures for evaluation of the president, and then there's other updates. We can save those for the next meeting, because we do have another meeting next month, if you guys are okay with that, or is there anything in there that you wanted to talk about right now? Because on my phone, we're at 6:07.
That's fine, Madam Chairman. I just have a question. Will the new faculty representatives be at the retreat?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then I would recommend that you, if it's possible, to take some time, either the last day or so, and kind of update or make the Board of Regents aware of some of the things that's coming down the road. And you may have already planned to do that, so that nobody is surprised, is what I'm saying. Okay?
Retreat, kind of tell, well, we're definitely going to be these to agenda, right, Kim?
I couldn't hear that. You were breaking up.
Yeah, what did you say, Hannah? We, this agenda of on board, correct?
We post the agenda for, yes.
Okay. So this I should post a new version, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then to James Lee's point, that as we're at retreat in November, you know, we can certainly say, hey, the committee in October, it may be a couple weeks after the retreat in November, but the agenda is under development. People will look at that, can see what the topics be. Does that make sense?
You're breaking up, but I think what you're saying is that, yes, we can continue to revise the agenda as we need to, and then post it. If we need to repost it, that's no problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, once you kind of work on can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now we can, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. Once you kind of work on revisions we talked about all the way through the, I guess, revision of mission state, all the way up to item I, what I'm looking at is item I, which is procedure for evaluation of the president. You'll revise all the stuff before that, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. Yes, and then, yes, and James Lee, I will mention during the retreat that we met, you know, we looked at a draft agenda. We've made some updates to that agenda. We're gonna meet again. I think it's like around the 20-something of November. I have it as maybe the 17th or 18th in November.